Good evening, and welcome to tonight's live online author event with Greenlight Bookstore. I'm Katie from Greenlight, and we're thrilled to host tonight's event with Alex Richards launching her new book, When We Were Strangers. She'll be talking with Kathleen Glasgow, so you're in for an excellent time. Before we start, I just want to say a huge thanks to Alex, Kathleen, and the team at Bloomsbury YA for making this happen, and to all of you for showing up. So we're not able to host events in our store spaces. Our community of authors and readers is still here. We're grateful for your support and for the chance to make space for conversation and connection. There's just a few housekeeping things to go over before we get started tonight. In our Zoom webinar, you can see and hear the speakers, but they can't see or hear you. They can see that you're here though, and you can see a count of fellow attendees on the top of your Zoom screen, but the exact location will depend on what kind of device you're using. There are a couple of different ways that you can interact with the authors and with each other throughout tonight's event, which we highly encourage. The first is the chat, which you can find by clicking on the icon that looks like one speech balloon. You're welcome to post your comments and thoughts in the chat. It's a great way to show your appreciation for the author and to interact with fellow attendees. So if you have a specific question you'd like to have answered by the author, please post that in the Q&A module. You can find it by clicking on the icon that looks like two speech balloons. We'll be pulling questions only from the Q&A to be answered in the later part of the program, so please make sure you're putting your questions there and not in the chat. And importantly, tonight's featured book, When We Were Strangers, is available for sale from Greenlight Bookstore. You can shop in person in our bookstore location from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the week, and you can purchase Alex's book and many others on site. Or order online at greenlightbookstore.com for a quick pickup at the store or for shipping anywhere in the US. I'll be dropping the buy link in the chat in just a moment. Alex stopped by our store yesterday to sign copies of the book, so you can get a signed copy by request while supplies last. Just make sure to indicate your signed copy request in the order comments at checkout when ordering online, or look for signed copies when you visit the store. If you care about supporting the careers of authors and the ongoing existence of independent bookstores, buying tonight's featured book is a great way to show your support. Our interviewer tonight is Kathleen Blasco. She is the New York Times bestselling author of Girl in Pieces, How to Make Friends with the Dark, and You'd Be Home Now. She lives in Tucson, Arizona. She will be speaking with our featured author, Alex Richards. A Greenlight neighbor, she is the author of Accidental, which she launched virtually with Greenlight last July, and is a freelance magazine contributor. She is a terrible navigator, just ask the African jungle that she got lost in, but makes up for it with a dark sense of humor and homemade horror films. She was raised in New Mexico and now lives in Brooklyn, New York with her family. Her new book, When We Were Strangers, is a gripping story about a teen grieving her father's sudden death and grappling with the shocking secrets he left behind. The book has been praised by fellow authors Shana Youngdahl, Jeff Zentner, and tonight's interviewer, Kathleen Glasgow, who says, When We Were Strangers is an exquisitely told story of grief, growing up, and the glorious complexities of love and life. A lovely portrayal of the artist as a young person, learning to zoom in on her main subject, the truth of her life, and what to do with it. Alex is going to start us off with a reading from the book, and then she'll be talking with Kathleen and with all of you. Please take it away, Alex.
Hi, thanks for coming, you guys. It's nice to see or know that you're there, even if I can't see you. I'm going to read a couple pages from the first chapter, so I don't really need to tell you any story background, and I'll try not to mess up too much. The house aches with silence. All I can do is stand there until I remember to lock the front door behind me, dropping my keys on the console table and inching through the darkness. Numbly, I climb the stairs, fingers tickling plaster walls to remind me that I still have nerve endings, that I can still feel. Mom stayed behind at the hospital. She needed to deal with insurance and morgue and cremation stuff, things you wish could be put off, but can't. While she handled it, she insisted that I come home to rest, to shower, to get the hospital stench off my skin. Maybe I'll burn my clothes too, but when I walk past my parents' bedroom door, I completely lose track of all purpose. 1,000 seconds tick by, because I guess this is it. This is what the rest of my life is going to be. Walking into a house with no wisecracking, slipper-wearing, grunge rock-loving dad. No dad. But their bedroom is still full of his smell, his things, and right now, I need to be close to what's left of him. I push the door open and tiptoe across the carpet and into my parents' bed, which is weird maybe, hiding under the covers at 17. I curl up on a dead man's pillow anyway. The memory foam still smells of him, still remembers him. Cedar and sunblock, it spins my heart into a long, thin thread. For a while I lie here, sobs avalanching off me in the darkness. Crying's never been my thing, and now I remember why. It's brutal to convulse like this, ache like this, all while I'm trying to catalog the past 15 hours. The fact that I woke up with a dad, said goodbye to him from behind the Pop-Tart between my teeth, drove to school thinking about how it was T-minus 5 days till summer vacation, physics, calculus, my English teacher doling out summer reading syllabi. Right around 7th period, that is when a pain so sharp and vicious crept up my father's left arm, blue eyes bulging while his chest cramped, keeling over, an unexpected heart attack called in by a terrified receptionist. Mom was in hysterics when I got to the hospital, dousing me in our new misery like a bucket of water. Together, we sat in the waiting room for 3 hours, hands intertwined, forming a closeness we hadn't had for years. We didn't talk or move or breathe, but in the end, it was the end. Just like on TV, the way weary surgeons slink into the waiting room to deliver bad news, the doctor's eyes apologizing before their lips, because not even a miracle hand could save him. My tears soak clean through Dad's pillow. I shudder and stretch, feet banging against something hard and unexpected at the foot of the bed. When I sit up, my head throbs, dehydration tugging at my temples. The lights are still off, but my eyes have adjusted, aided by a waning moon through the skylight. Dad's suitcase, that's what I kicked, which is weird because he didn't say anything about a trip, although his accounting firm would occasionally send him to regional conferences. I force myself off the bed, reaching for the lamp on Dad's nightstand, click, click, clicking the switch till light stings my eyes and the room feels real. I want to cry all over again, but I force a swallow, hauling the suitcase toward me. I've barely unzipped it when I spot an even bigger suitcase on the floor, and then a garment bag and a box by the door. Hold on, what? With skinny breath and weak fingers, I reach for Dad's dresser, sliding open the drawers one by one. Empty, empty, empty. My eyes ping pong around the room, his bathrobe missing from the hook behind the door, no bird watching books or laundry pile or mounds of electronics. The room wobbles as I soak in its lopsidedness. Mom's late for work clutter, rumpled clothes and coffee mugs and stacks of half-read novels. The only traces left are of her, nothing of him. I choke on my own spit when it hits me. Holy shit, was my dad moving out? I'm still gasping, rubbing swollen eyes, trying to steady my breath while my brain tornadoes inside my head. Because I know you're not supposed to jump to conclusions, especially when you're in the throes of grief or whatever, but give me a break. He packed everything. My dad was leaving us. There is no other explanation. And I'm finding out now, like this. I start to pace around the room, sorting more than a day's worth of memories, the evolution of their silence, occasional fights, Mom whisper shouting behind closed doors about another woman's perfume on his clothes. I mean, there was a time I thought divorce, but it kept not happening, as if a scab formed over their discontent, which, okay, fine, I rallied around. With half the kids in Santa Fe bouncing from moms to dads and back again, I'll admit to wanting them to work through it. Parents don't always stay married, but mine were supposed to. At least that's what I wanted. Maybe it's what Mom wanted too, and now she's devastated and filling out paperwork at the hospital, crying into a nurse's arms, thinking she just lost the love of her life, but I cringe when it hits me. She doesn't know. Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you, Alex. That was so beautiful. So one of the things that I loved most about this book, we were talking about this a little bit before, was the grief aspect. Yesterday was the 10th anniversary of my own mom's death. So I often turn to books to just help me through some of the memories that I have. And what I loved about this book so much was that in the middle of all that grief that Evie is feeling, she discovers this secret that changes her life forever. And it's really the moment that she realizes her parents are actual people and not just her parents, and that they have flaws and secrets. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you decided on that plot point.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I think you wrote about this type of grief and losing a parent so beautifully, and like just dealt with it like in such a raw way. And I think I guess I just wanted to put like a bit of a twist on things, like this, and also with accidental, like I sort of tend to want to take a very heavy topic, but find a way to kind of just breathe a little something different into it, and like be able to add some humor and friendship and different things, but also like I think I wanted to just show like a different way that you can be dealing with your grief, because there isn't really a right way. And she finds this out, and instead of being able to focus and really try and process her grief,
Yeah.
she has to, she lets herself become consumed with finding out more about the mistress, and just letting herself kind of compartmentalize and almost like forget about her grief for a while.
I thought that was an excellent writerly way to do that, because now not only is she trying to work through this grief, she also has to work through that anger at her dad and her mom and this other woman, and accept the fact that if she's going to reconcile with her dad's memory, she's going to have to get to know him in a way she didn't know him when he was alive. Like all those things that he kept with her. And her voice rang incredibly true during the entire book. I cried like a baby. And one of my favorite parts of this book was we hear a lot of criticism from people reading YA that, you know, your characters sound immature and it's like, oh, they're a teenager. But you know what? When Evie starts to stalk the mistress, I totally would have done that. Like, what teenager would not be like, I have to go figure out like who was in my dad's life?
Right, because I think like it's sort of, the world is spinning out of control, and it's one thing that she feels like she can do to maintain some control, and to feel like she's not so lost. And like maybe if she can find out why her dad was doing it and who this person was, then it'll make more sense to her. And it's kind of like a, you know, a grief-stricken wild thing for her to decide, and it's not necessarily like the logical choice. And her friend kind of says like, I don't know if you should be doing this, but exactly, it's like it's just sort of you can't be in charge necessarily of your emotions, which is interesting about like some people saying things like that. Oh, like this is an immature reaction. Like, well, you know, teenagers don't have to necessarily all be super mature and composed and thinking things through logically and reasonably, like adults are supposed to do. And like adults also don't think things through logically and reasonably, but like teens, I think, have even more.
They don't. And I think that grief makes you do weird things. Like it takes a hold of you. You can't control it. Your emotions are not your own, because it's an entirely new emotion. So you don't know how to corral it or keep it in a box. And then I thought that was just like a beautiful moment of like writerly expertise. Was, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this grief up also in this mystery of who was her dad and who is this woman and what's going on. I want you to talk a little bit about the setting, because I loved that it's set in Santa Fe. I lived in Santa Fe. I love when there are real cities in books, and especially when there are real places in that city in the book, and you don't make up like the coffee shop they go to and stuff like that. Like, you have real places. So I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Well, so I grew up in Santa Fe, and I feel like it's, I mean, and your books kind of go into the Southwest a lot, and they spend time in Mexico. It's like, there's not that many books that are in this part of the world. Like, I think that a lot of people maybe just feel like it's not as exciting. And like, if I'm going to be reading something, either if it's not like a total fantasy like realm, then like it should be maybe somewhere like a little bit more exciting. But I love Santa Fe. I think it was a boring place to grow up. Like, definitely from a teenager's perspective, it's like, oh yeah, nice sunset, who cares?
Well, you had Zozobra.
Yeah, well, let's not talk too much about Zozobra, because I really want to write a book. Maybe we should co-write a book where Zozobra is like featured in it, because I feel like a night of where it's like all centered around Zozobra, I feel like it has to happen. Nobody steal this idea.
You should tell people briefly what Zozobra is.
Okay, Zozobra is, another term for it is old man gloom, and it's this 50-foot paper mache sculpture that they put in the baseball field. And I mean, and then they have like a big microphone, and so somebody is down going like, and we burn him, and you put your worries into him, and then they kind of torch him on fire, and he goes up in flames, and then people dance in front of it, and there's fireworks, and it's this huge thing. It's been going on for, I don't know, less than 100 years or so, but like close. It's been going on for a really long time, and it's just amazing. And it's like that kind of thing doesn't happen anywhere else. And like every year they sort of dye his hair a different color, and like he's like one of those things, you know, with they have air in it and they're like flopping around like this, but he's a paper mache guy, and it's just amazing. And there's the whole town gets into it. It's called like Fiestas Weekend, and I think that it's just a total perfect setting for like a crazy night of wildness. And yeah.
Definitely. And so Evie is also talk about the photography aspect, because I love it when people put art in books. Like that's a favorite of mine.
Well, that was another thing that gave me a really good excuse to kind of explore Santa Fe, was because she's doing this photography class, and those classes, I think I changed like the name of it, but it's basically completely based on the place that I took photography classes, which is this, like, they use like a monastery or something like in town, and they people come from all over the world. They get famous photographers to teach the classes, and people come, and I always loved taking those classes when I was a teen, but I was definitely like the youngest person, so that's she kind of meets a lot of older people, but they go on location, and that's so that's like a big chance for them. There's a scene where they're like walking down Canyon Road and exploring like the colors and the art scene there, and going to cafes and stuff. But I really enjoyed putting the element of photography into this book, because I majored in photography in college and studied it a lot in high school, and I just really love it. And I think photography has definitely changed a lot since I was in college and studying it and stuff. But I think I love it. And it was a really fun way to incorporate art, and also just, you know, since she's really struggling with everything, like letting her be able to like be free and creative. And she's not good at it at first. She's really nervous about her photography, and like feeling very self-deprecating about how, you know, like she doesn't want to take the class, and it's just it's hard for her to kind of open her brain up to being an artist. But I think like for a lot of people, for most of us, like having some kind of creative outlet when you are in the middle of grief can be really, really beneficial. And she doesn't know it, but it does. It ends up like, you know, really helping her.
She finds a really supportive group of people in the photography class, adults and fellow teenagers. And would you like to talk about one of my favorite characters, the ones who has an excellent selection of t-shirts, and where that idea came from?
Yes, Declan is, he's the love interest, and that is always one of my favorite characters to write, because it's just fun and they're sweet, and I like to not have too much conflict with a love interest, because I feel like so many books do that, and it's good and it's useful, but I'm like, oh, let's just have them pretty much be happy. And he is, yeah, he wears these crazy t-shirts. I think when I did like a first version of this, he wore band t-shirts. And then I was like, I feel like a lot of people wear band t-shirts. Let's like get him outside of the box. So he always shows up to class wearing, like Virginia is for lovers, and like City of Angels, and different shirts, because he has a little bit of a backstory of his own, that his parents are documentary filmmakers, and they travel a lot, and he doesn't get to see them much, but he gets these t-shirts. So
every time Declan showed up, I was like, oh, I want to know, like he had a different t-shirt, and that was something that like I really enjoyed in the book, was like, what's he wearing now?
That's funny. Oh, good. I'm glad that snuck in.
I think it was awesome. So a little bit about like your publishing journey, if you want to talk about it a little bit, with Accidental, and then with When We Were Strangers, because I know there are some aspiring writers out there who might want to know what it's like when you finally reach that stage where someone buys your book and says it's going to be a book on a shelf.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference. Yeah, I mean, so I sold Accidental, and it was a 2-book deal, which I think makes a big difference, in that the second book, it was a little bit less. Oh, I don't know. both more and less overwhelming because like I knew that it was going to be published. So like I wasn't as like nervous and like, oh God, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? But it was still very, maybe that actually made it more scary because I was like, I've definitely sold them this book. And if it's not good, then, you know, what's going to happen? What will they do to me? But I really love the editing process. I think that like, you know, like writing a first draft is so hard. And I know I've seen Liz in the chat and I know she knows how hard it is. We all know how hard it is to write a first draft, but it's then when you get more stuck into the editing, it's like a little bit more, you kind of see all the puzzle pieces coming together. And then also like you get a letter from your editor, which has kind of, which is kind of great. Or I mean, it can be, they kind of sandwich it in. They're like, maybe they'll say something bad, but they also say a bunch of nice stuff. And I'll like highlight the nice stuff and like just focus on the nice stuff at first and then go back in and be like, okay, what's the stuff that they actually didn't like and need me to change? But it's really cool to see it come together and to go from something. I mean, I don't know how many drafts I wrote of this book, but a lot. And I mean,
did anything significantly change after you got the first edit letter?
No, but like I think it was more like nuance. Like I had such great edit notes from I had two different editors, Claire Stetzer and Mary Kate Castellani, were both kind of helping me out on it. And they just really wanted to like amplify the sense of womanhood and like really having Evie like sort of however she felt, and she was kind of so angry in the beginning, like that it really came together, that it is sort of like about like women, you know, supporting women, and like that, you know, to see past. I think because I guess I really hold on to my like teen angst a lot, and I really did let it be like super dark. I'm like, she's just mad, let's just let her be mad, keep her being mad for a little longer. And they were like, let's just pull the layers away of like her anger and see, you know, like start to like let other things show through. So yeah, the notes were a lot more like nuanced, and a few things changed, like I think I added a couple of scenes. One thing that you don't know, because you have the arc of it, is I rewrote the last line. So I'm definitely gonna have to send you a copy, because once I changed the last line, I started going through and I was like, oh God, I wish like the people that had the arc didn't like have to read that last line.
What is the new last line?
I
will read the old last line.
All right.
Okay. Make sure I'm right. I took a long, strange way of getting here, but I finally did make it, and I'm staying.
Okay, so the last line now is like, it's like 2 extra sentences. Now the last line is, so they're at the hospital. Well, you're getting a big spoiler, but they're at the hospital. She says, after I leave, I whisper his name over and over again, giving it space, letting it stretch and strengthen. Parker, Parker, Parker. I call him my brother till the words stop sounding foreign on my tongue, until finally it sounds like home. Sorry, that was like, couldn't have been more of a spoiler. Sorry for anybody who was going to read the book.
You know, a lot of people, like, it is true that, you know, you send out other people who are asked to like read the book and offer like a blurb for the book, which go on the back or the front cover. We read it. It's still not completely done. It's still like in the form that's being edited. And so there can be changes like afterward to the finished version. And I think that's a really interesting part of like the author process, is that you have to send out this book for people to read when it's not really even done yet. And there might be like significant changes. And it's always like, I hope.
Well, that's where you are right now, right? You've sent out arcs. Are there going to be major changes?
No. No, that's like, that was pretty much it, because like the editing process for You'd Be Home Now went like very quickly in terms of timeline for when they had to have the book out. So there are not going to be major changes because it comes out in 2 months. So
right,
they have to get that finished.
Yeah. So. But that is something that's interesting. Like I think if there's, well, hopefully there's not too much that my publishing company like really hates about me, but probably I would say the copy editor hates me because I do tend to like want to change a lot of stuff after like during past pages. And I know you're not supposed to change very much, but I'm like, what about if I write this? Or like, how about this instead? And I think like I probably push the limits. So
I think all writers feel like their copy editors are unhappy with them, like during the entire process. Like I had a copy editor once who was like, I don't understand why the mother is chopping 6 vegetables. What exactly is she cooking? And I was like, what? I don't even, why is that? That's not a plot point. She's making, why? Just
multitasking.
And
well, there was another one. Yeah, there was one in this book, and on every pass and like every edit that they're like, she lives in a house there. They live in New Mexico, and she has a brick floor.
Yeah.
And every editor was like, what do you mean a brick floor? Like people don't have brick floors. And I was like, they do though, in New Mexico, in Santa Fe. Like I had my kitchen was a brick floor. And I had to, then I went to like Google Images and had to like send everybody a picture. I'm like, I'm not making this up.
We had when they were copy editing Girl in Pieces, there was the great green chili war between me and the copy editor because, you know, green chili, it's CHI because, right? And then they kept changing it to CHILI. And I was like, no, that's not it. CHILI is a meat. This is a sauce. No. And so that was the great green chili war. And you have to tell them, like, you know, I got a brick floor here. I have a concrete floor. I have like a Spanish tile floor. Like, it's just a little bit different out here. And we had, you know, copy editors, for people who don't know, you know, they're also, especially if it's contemporary realistic fiction, they have to look up everything that you name to make sure, is that real or not? And is it accurate? And that when we were doing You'd Be Home Now, you know, the editor had this note like, I have searched and searched and searched, and I cannot find any convenience store that carries the Pop Pup cup. And I was like, well, I made up the convenience store and I made up the 32-ounce Pop Pup cup. So you don't have to worry about it, but thank you for digging into that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, they make us like better.
There were, I had something about like, there's some scene where she and Declan are talking about like, and they talk about like celebrities that are born in New Mexico. And I think you know, there's like Tom Ford and Demi Lovato and, you know, and so there were like Wikipedia pages next to all of these things. Like, yes, it's true. Demi Lovato was born in Albuquerque. Yes, it's true. George O'Keeffe did spend time in like Abiquiu. But yeah, I mean, it is so impressive. They're so diligent, and everything they're looking up. Like some song that I listed, they're like, yes, this is the song and this is the artist. It's amazing. They put so much attention to detail into it.
They do. I think that they have the hardest job, actually.
Yeah.
It's harder than being your actual editor, because your actual editor is like, I love this, but by the way, you need to like cut these 50 pages and redo these 20. And it's like kind of a big picture thing, but your copy editor is like the little tiny details that could really trip you up. And so they have a thankless job, and we should probably send them like chocolates.
I know.
So one thing you and I talked about that I'm always super interested in, because it wasn't something I thought about before I became published, but when you sell your book, sometimes it sells with a title that is not the title that it ends up being published under. Like Girl in Pieces sold as The Tender Kit, and then
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they changed the title like 4 or 5 times before they settled on Girl in Pieces. So do you have a title story or two?
I mean, well, so since this was the second book, like Accidental, I never had wanted that to be called Accidental. It was total placeholder. I was like, we'll think of something better along the way. And my editor, they were all like, no, Accidental is great, that's fine. And then this book, which I basically submitted, I think, as like untitled document. So it really didn't have a title. I think that my editor and I went back and forth with about 80 titles. I was interested, the photography is like a big part of this. So I was interested in like photography kind of titles. You'll either like or dislike this one, Girl in Focus.
Oh, I actually I like that one. But
Like girl in pieces, girl
I
in
might be
focus.
partial. Yeah.
No, exactly. I like girl unfiltered. The art of observation was one. I mean, we had so many. And since accidental was like a one word kind of punchy thing, I was also like, how about wreckage? Because her life is kind of this like whole wrecked thing. And my editor thought that it sounded a little bit too much like a shipwreck,
Yeah.
which I can see. So I was like, okay, but we were really close to the title being the wreckage between us,
Oh.
which sort of was like appeasing my need to have the word wreckage and sort of like things, going on between different people. But then, and we even like did a mock cover with that title, and I don't know, it just like, it kept sort of it didn't like roll off the tongue kind of as much. I was also interested in, there's like kind of an element of like bird watching that happens in this book. And so I was really interested, how it's like a murder of crows and all those different like kind of birding terminology things. Like I kept trying, but there was no birding word that really made sense. So we ended up, there was like, I have like so many, there were so many, where the spotlights fall. And then strange focus, we started using like stranger in focus, strange heartbreak. And then like when we were strangers was just like, number 79 out of like 100. And then we just kind of circled back, because it was my editor, Claire, who kept having to, we would sort of agree on 5, and then she would have to take them to the team. And, I don't even know who the team is really. Do you? Like, who are the people on that table?
I do know some of the people I have met at conferences, and then a lot of the people I don't know, they're just a voice on like a conference call. I have never been to the offices ever.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
I went once.
Okay.
I went to the office of Bloomsbury in February of 2020, when we were like, we knew about COVID, but we were like, bumping elbows to say hello. But we kind of, we met in the conference room and stuff. And then, that was it. That was my one chance to go into the office.
So it does have a very stunning cover. I'm going to do like a TikTok transition really badly. So a stunning cover. And I like, one of my favorite parts of being a writer is the whole cover process, because, they will send you like what they call a comp cover, like, here's what we're thinking. And you have to say like, ew, or I like her ear, or something like that. And can you talk a little bit, but really, I think that somewhere in the background, like, I don't know, maybe like super famous authors, they get like a choice. I really don't feel like we get a choice. I feel like they're just like, yeah, but they're really, because they're marketing people and they know it better than we do. But did you have different covers for that?
It was mostly the cover artist is I think he's French, because his Instagram seems to all be in French. His name is David Lanaspa, and I'm blanking on what the other names of books are that he, Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know, I think he might have done. And I thought that the artwork was great. And then when even just from seeing the first mock-up of this, which I didn't realize, because I'm like a newbie, but she just sent like a black and white sketch, and I was kind of like, oh, I feel like it would look better in color. And they're like, yeah, it's obviously going to be in color. Like, this is just like a rough sketch. And I was like, sorry. But it was really cool. Like, it looked a lot like this. It was the girl, but I think it was a lot tighter in, like, you didn't see like her hair or any of the background. And it was just, it was really close. And I think so. I was, I kind of like gave a note, like, oh, maybe like we could pull it back a little, because since the book takes place in New Mexico, and can I get this? Like, there's like a cool adobe building, and this is that's Santa Fe. They're like right on the plaza, which I just really, really love. I love that it has like a little bit more of like a Southwest flair. But I love the colors, and I was super happy, because I'm a big like film noir fan, and I thought it just instantly, with the camera, I thought it had like a really nice moody look to it, like from the first sketch that I saw. I was so excited.
Yeah. Can you hold up Accidental too? Because that has a truly like stunning cover.
Yeah, that is, so this one is Adams Carvalho did the art for this. I'm trying to like not have the glare. Who did Nina LaCour's book, We Are Okay, and Jen Moffat's book, Those Who Pray. And it's just, yeah, it's such a good style. And they're actually, so like there's sort of, again, like a town background in it. But it's less, I think that we had done one version that was a little bit more New Mexico with like mesas, you know, like the flat top mountains and stuff. But I don't know, then we changed some other things and that ended up changing in the shuffle as well. But I love both of these covers and I feel like they look nice together.
They do.
They're sort of both, you know, like girl who has problems kind of cover.
They make a good set. They make a lovely set. Also, so if anyone has any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen next to the chat box, because we're going to do, I think, questions in about 15 minutes. So Alex, what is next for you? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now, or if there are any like things happening for this, secrets you can tell us?
I wish I had some secrets. I'm not really doing too much more. I mean, I'm doing a couple more like events for this book. I've started working on a new book, and it was definitely like a slow going process of feeling motivated to write. I feel like editing Strangers plus COVID, homeschooling, you know, all the things, it was just like so depleting that I started, I don't know, it was hard to get back into it. But then I was like back and forth with my agent Lauren, who's amazing, about of just like some different ideas. She was like, you know what, you've got to get back into it. She's a real like, I call her like my boxing coach, because she's like, don't let anything stop you, like keep it up, don't get distracted, like get back into it. So I gave her a bunch of ideas. We kind of both agreed on one, and I wrote an outline. And so like, I know a lot of people are either a like plotter or a pantser. I am definitely a plotter. And part of it, I think part of the reason I plot is because it's a good way to not actually write the book and not have to sit down and do the writing.
You'll sit there forever and like work on just your plot and your outline. And it's like, that's not actually getting words on the page. And
it's
I know
not.
that Dante is here, and she'll probably have something to say about that. Because I'm except for when I wrote with Liz, I'm a pretty firm like pantser. I can't.
You are. Okay.
Yeah, I can't have too much of an outline in the beginning. Like I make a goal, I have an idea, and I think about it for like a super long time, and then I just write 300 pages.
Mm-hmm.
I have to let like what is going to happen, and then I feel like I can go back and work on it.
And you don't know.
I love people who are like plotters who are able to do it, but then I feel
like then I don't know what happens. I mean, I have a drawer full of books that will probably never sell, because like, I think you know, I wrote these whole books, and then it's like, well, what happened, you know, like what's the what is this book actually about? And I don't know what the book was about. So this is better for me. But like, when you do that, did you know, like, okay, so I'm just going to write the book, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that it ends up here?
I like, when I have an idea for a book, I think about it for a really, really, really long time. Like sometimes I think about another book while I'm writing one book.
Oh.
And I think about it for a really, really long time. And I feel like part of this might come because I started as a poet. And so I'm used to just like free form writing and then going back and revising. And I learned that about myself, that I am like mostly a pantser forever when I was writing You'd Be Home Now. Because since that was loosely based on our town, I was having a lot of problems because I was penned in by the story of our town and following like that plot, until finally my editor was like, I think you can move away from that now and let yourself take over, and you have these elements. And like once she said that to me, I felt so much better. And when I didn't have that surrounding me, actually more of things that I culled from our town, I was able to put into the book without
Oh,
even
that's interesting.
consciously like thinking about it.
Mhm.
So I can't do it except for the mystery with Liz, because you have to plot a mystery or you're screwed.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't think I could write a mystery because you have to plot a mystery, but you also have to like really have all the twists and turns, and nobody
Yeah.
can know. But
But it was easy doing that because I wasn't doing that alone.
sure.
So,
Yeah, you had Liz, which must have been really helpful.
you know what, I have to tell you, you need to co-write a book with somebody because you're only responsible for like 50% of it. And then when you're stuck, there's always someone to text.
That's a good point.
They know exactly what you're talking about. And they'll even text you and wake you up in the morning, which was like super great.
Well, we're gonna write a Zobra book, so I'm gonna talk to you about this another time.
We need to like work on. We should just get a bunch of YA authors and like, just write like a whole novel, and some of us will just do scenes and chapters. And it'll be a road trip book, and at some point they have to end up in Santa Fe.
And that will be my chapter.
Yeah,
I'm reading Blackout right now, which I thought was an anthology, but it isn't. It is actually
they're
a
interconnected.
novel. Yeah, they're all interconnected. So exactly, let's do that.
Let's do it. It should be a road trip book.
Yes.
When you take Santa Fe.
Right. Everybody will have. Dante will obviously take Alaska. It's going to be hard for us to get from Santa Fe to Alaska on a road trip, but
we can do it. Because they're teenagers, they can drive for a long time without sleeping. Because we like drinking Red Bull and coffee and eating red vines and stuff like that. I'll take Tucson. So wait, Liz said, isn't Alaska an island?
Liz.
I think that Liz and Dante are fighting in the comments, so we'll let them do that. And again, if anyone has questions for Alex, go ahead and put them in the comments. And Alex, I want to say that your debut happened during a pandemic, and that was really, really hard. And I was watching that from afar, all these authors who had these great plans and hopes for their books, for some nice splash and recognition. And Accidental was a Kirkus Best Book of the Year.
Thanks.
Which is awesome. And that was terrible. And then I was thinking yesterday, we are still in a pandemic. And so your second book has now come out in the pandemic.
Yeah, it's definitely been like bittersweet. I think last year was horrible in so very many ways, but yeah, on like a selfish level, I was like, oh, I can't believe my book is coming out in the pandemic. But I'm like, but next year, when my next book comes out, at least that will be all in person and everything will be back to normal then. And it is a little hard to accept the fact that we're all still here. I mean, I'm glad because it's given me the chance to have this Zoom with you, and we've all actually met so many more cool people than we ever would have, because we've all been like forced to do all these online events and stuff. But yeah, it's hard and it's sad, and I feel like yesterday was a little nerve-wracking because I was thinking, oh God, like here we go again, like another book coming out in the pandemic. This is going to be hard. But between Accidental coming out and this book coming out, I've joined TikTok, which I know you have as well. And I feel like that's,
you're very good at TikTok, and you have this like really wonderful, like warm and funny and creative personality. And so I think that you're well suited to TikTok. And I'm not particularly well suited to TikTok, although I'm there. And I like TikTok because people really love books, and they're talking about books, and they're making.
They do. I like the ones that you've done. I don't see you enough. Like you're not out there. But the one that we did together where we're reading each other's books, I thought that was good.
It's because I'm always like, who wants to see my face? And I'm like,
that's how I feel.
And nervous, but people are like, oh, just do it, who cares? But I also have to be aware. I have, my oldest child just turned 13, and so I have to be very aware of how I do things and what I put out there, because some of his friends have read my books and I don't, and liked them, but I don't want them to be like, look at your mom on TikTok doing like deep knee bends with her book. So I have to be I got to be careful about what I put out there.
Right. Well, my daughter is 10, and I think she and her friends have seen my videos on TikTok, but
Yours are great.
They're 10, and I feel like they're okay with it. But I know Jen Moffat has, who wrote Those Who Pray, she has teenagers, and they are not so interested in her being on TikTok.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a window for TikTok or whatever, and TikTok will be over by the time my daughter's a teenager. But whatever it is that we're doing by the time she's a teenager, I probably won't be allowed to do that. So I'm gonna strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do deep knee bends.
I think now that you've mentioned it, I did like a yoga video where
yoga's fine. I saw someone doing squats with their book, and I was like, that's not. How are you going to feel about that in like 30 years? I don't want to do that. But so we've kind of veered away.
Sorry.
So what is your, if anyone is here who's wondering about the writing life, what is your advice for like starting that novel? What's your advice besides
write the outline? I mean, I think like finding the topic that really excites you, that you feel passionate about, that like if you were out hanging out with a friend and they're like, what's your book about? You could talk about it for an hour because you're so into the topic of this book, whether it be something that you have firsthand knowledge and experience of, or just some, wild, like off the wall idea. I think just like having that passion to know that you have to write this book, I mean, it's certainly how you're gonna and also don't get bogged down with revising. Like you have to just write. I mean, I don't follow this advice at all, because like I'll write one chapter and then instead of going to the second chapter, I'll then reread the first chapter like 15 times to really try and like edit it, make it look better, and make myself like feel like I'm on the right path. But I think that's bad. I think you have to just forge ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I think we are moving on to the Q&A.
Okay.
So we'll both sit here very quietly for that.
All right. I'm back. Okay. So the first question that we have is from Dante Medema. Such heavy subject matter for you both. How do you recharge after writing such hard stuff?
It's a good question. I feel like I definitely put off the hard scenes, somewhat. It's so much more enjoyable to write the good ones. I think you kind of have to sandwich it in, like write something hard and then don't stop writing. Like I don't stop writing. I launch right into the next scene where they're like, or keep going into the next chapter where maybe there's some way for them to like seek solace. Like I tend to use like a friend group a lot, and love interests, like for them to just find a way, like just find like small comforts and things. So when things are really hard, just then kind of push through and find some, even if those scenes get cut, I think it makes me feel better. It's easier for me. What about you?
I don't really know about like recharging. I'm like not very good at rejuvenating myself. I'll just go like watch TV or something. But my new book is a little more gentle than my past books, so maybe I was recharging myself in that way by writing a book that did have, like you said, some other characters who could provide like some lighter moments and levity.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's how I was recharging.
Yeah.
I'll try to be better about recharging and rejuvenating.
Yeah, but watching TV is also a good way to recharge, I think. Ted Lasso.
I'm basically a sloth, so
yeah. Our next question is from Shannon Takeoka. Can you talk about how you come up with story ideas? Does it start with a character, theme, something else?
I think it starts out with like a story idea. I I don't think I've ever written anything where I hadn't like fully fleshed out what the book idea, like what the book was going to be and what like the main conflict was. And then, and that sort of kind of helped establish what type of character it was going to be. Like what type of person would get themselves in this situation, came after I worked out exactly like what the story was going to be.
I would say that each idea for a book that I write springs from something that has happened to me in my life, like Girl in Pieces, being a person who is in recovery from self-harm, and then How to Make Friends with the Dark. My mother and my sister died, so I wanted to explore grief. You'd Be Home Now was a little trickier since that was inspired by a play I didn't write, but I chose to write it differently from the sister's point of view. And her brother Joey is the one who is an addict and has returned from rehab. And so I was writing someone who was a lot different from me with the MC, but my experiences in recovery in general from alcoholism and substance abuse, I gave to Joey. He has my thoughts and feelings about that. So everything I write does spring from something that has happened to me or that I'm working through, and I just kind of tailor it to a younger audience. I'm like an open book. Okay.
Our next question, and I apologize if I pronounced his name wrong, it's Lygia Penaflor. Do you hold on to your characters in your mind, or do you let them go once your books are published?
I guess I don't think that I do, because I think that like little parts of the characters are like, I definitely put in some kind of parts of my personality into different characters. So they're sort of always in there a little bit. But that's such a good question, because sometimes, I think sometimes I think that I'm going to forget. I'm like, oh, I'm done writing this. I want nothing more than to like really just be done with it. But you spend so much time working on it and getting to know these characters that it's like, I don't know, maybe eventually I will forget about them, but you're really invested. It's like it's like, having like a roommate or something, and you can't really just step away from it too easily, I think.
No, because you spent a lot of time invested in their thoughts and feelings, and you basically planned the trajectory of their life for the duration of that book. And, the other day I was thinking, well, it's been almost 5 years since Girl in Pieces came out, and Charlie Davis would be 22.
Mm.
And she started Girl in Pieces at 17. And I was like, what is she up to? Like, what a vastly different person you are at 22 than you are at 17. And
right.
I kind of want to make it like a cake for her.
Well, I mean, both of your books and my books, like, really big, intense things happen to these characters. Yeah. And even when you read the last page and like, the reader closes the book, like, yeah, they kind of are sort of characters that still live on, and the thing that happened to them is huge. And what do you like? Yeah, you want to think that they go on to have like a happy-ish ending, but it's hard to know. They've been through so much. Like I end both of these books with them sort of starting therapy, or like, trying to realize that like they need closure, and they, they're like finding a happy ending to something, but it's life is complicated, and who knows what, gets thrown in.
I mean, it's interesting. They become like a part of you.
Our next question is from Eva Gibson. Both your books feature such intricate, complicated family dynamics. What inspires you to delve into that particular subject?
I really liked, I don't know, I think I wanted to explore who family, like just a different way of who family can be. YA, I think there's like a stereotype or a cliche that why I like the parent, like, oh, the parents are gone, like, but for everything. And they are a lot, but so, there are so many different ways that can all go down. And I think that I just wanted to show a family dynamic where just, I don't know, things don't always work out well, and really give the teenagers like a chance to see that your parents are actual people, and they aren't necessarily the people that you thought they were going to be. Like in the first chapter, the part that I was reading, she could tell that her parents were fighting, but she wanted them to stay together. And I just feel like that's so common, and it's interesting just to kind of explore where all the different ways that family dynamics can be. And sorry, I feel like I got distracted. I feel like I liked a heavy topic. I really liked exploring the mom character and making her kind of just not necessarily a great mom, but like going through the pain in her own way. I think everybody goes through pain in their own way, and it was cool to like explore that and show that like the parents as human.
I loved the mom in When We Were Strangers because, she completely fell apart, and she was not there for her daughter. And that also seemed to me to be realistic because she has just lost her husband and found out, the secret.
Yes.
And so she's a mess, and that's how grief is. It isn't always supportive and wonderful like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably say I have the most complete family in You'd Be Home Now. I tried to dispense with all the family and Girl in Pieces because I needed Charlie to feel very alone. So because the readers who were going to connect with her felt like they were alone, even if they had a lot of family in their household, they felt alone. So I moved her, took away her family, and gave her some adult mentors. I gave her a found family, and I like the found family aspect primarily because I do write teenagers who feel alone or who can't connect with their own family. I like them to have another option for that love and acceptance.
I think we have time for one or two more. So our next one is, how many books did you write before you sold your first? That's from Dante.
I think I've written 6 books. Yeah, some of which are books that I feel like I would maybe like pull out of a drawer and hope that somebody would be interested in like publishing them one day, and some that like, that's it, that was like wasted time. I'm never never gonna be able to do anything with that book. Yeah, it seems like a lot there. You spend so much time and effort writing. It seems like a shame to like not do anything with it. How about you, Kathleen?
I half wrote one book before I wrote what was going to become Girl in Pieces.
Oh.
That was it. I wrote poetry before that, so there you
go. Oh, I didn't know that.
So, but it took me like 13 drafts and 9 years to write that, because I just want to tell anyone who, if you're writing right now and you're wondering like, how can I squeeze it in and how can I be a writer, you have to let life happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I lost my mother. My sister was writing Girl in Pieces for those 9 years. I had 2 kids. I moved jobs. And a lot of that time was spent not actually writing the book, but just thinking about it and writing in like spare moments. And you do what you have to do, and your writing timeline is up to you. And don't feel guilty or that you're missing out or you're not moving fast enough or you're not successful enough.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You can only do what you can do while also trying to pay attention to the life that you're supposed to be living.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's all you can do.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. This was such a wonderful discussion. Thank you both so much. And thanks to everybody who joined us tonight. Don't forget to buy your copy of When We Were Strangers in store or online at greenlightbookstore.com. And if you missed any of tonight's event or just want to watch it again, we will be posting it to our YouTube channel, so please look out for it there. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you for having us. Bye, you guys. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Bye, Alex.